if you need anything, just let me know.
Yeah.
Right? That's our cop out.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, just show up. Just show up.
Just do it.
Just do it. Paul didn't ask Onesiphorus to show up, and Onesiphorus didn't like sit down, write a whole letter and say, hey, Paul, I know you're in jail and you're by yourself and you're really discouraged because all these church people just left you. If you need anything, I'll show up. No, he got on a boat or a horse or a camel. I don't know what he rode.
Yeah.
And he went to Rome and searched hard and showed up. And I just think that's something that we all need to get so much better at. Is just show up.
Do you think we overcomplicate it?
Yes. I do.
Yeah, same here. That's why I asked, because it's so easy to say those words and those words become hollow because there's no action followed by it. But I think we overcomplicate it because like, well, what if they don't want this type of encouragement? Or what if I show up with flowers or a pizza and they don't like pizza? Like, I think we just say their no for them because it's easier than taking the step of action to actually stand with them. Well, welcome to the Advancing Leader podcast, where we equip leaders to accelerate the mission of the church. My name's Bevan. I'm the campus pastor at TCC DuBois. I'm here with Chris Trethewey, our lead pastor, and today we're talking about encouragement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bevan, you're a wonderful guy.
Thank you.
How's that to kick it off?
That feels great.
But now you have to say something nice at me.
You are a wonderful person as well.
Oh, thank you. I feel encouraged.
There we go. Podcast done.
Done.
All right.
Record setting.
No, I think this is a really great topic. Something we have a series called E-Courage that we're teaching on right now, and I think it's just one of those things that's so timely right now. But also, encouragement is one of those things that's timeless as well. Like, I don't think there's ever a season in my life where I couldn't have used encouragement or wouldn't have appreciated encouragement.
You think about that. We can think through very specific moments when that person encouraged at that level that made that type of impact.
Yeah.
And we all can think of seasons where we wish we were encouraged more.
Yeah.
And I just think there's a longing. This is not a personality thing. There's a longing within all of us to be encouraged. But yet we all, and I say all, because I think we don't do a good job encouraging, right? So we need it, we want it, we crave it. And I'm not even saying when I say crave it, I'm not even saying in an unhealthy way. I just say like we need encouragement.
Yeah.
But yet we need it. We know other people need it, and we don't do a good job giving it. And I think that's the heartbeat of what we're going to be talking about today is, hey, we should really practice, work on being encouragers. And I just think the more we do that, the more people, well, guess what? It reciprocates back to you.
No, that makes sense. I think it's an interesting point because it's funny that we would not encourage more knowing that we need it, because it's almost like, okay, if I know I need it, then I know other people need it, so I should just start getting the ball rolling.
Yeah, that's logical.
Yeah. But we don't do that.
We don't.
Yeah.
Right? You think about some of the most difficult seasons where you're so discouraged and you're just wanting someone, right? You're just longing for someone to say, go get it. You can do it. And then we don't.
Yeah. And I think it's so big right now because everything in our world, for the most part, is discouraging or points to the negative. Like social media, you have this comparison trap where you're looking at what you don't have instead of just being thankful for what you have. Or just media in general being doom and gloom and everything that's going on. It's never good news a lot of the time. We're not like celebrating things. We're usually looking at things that are kind of more negative. And when we're in that headspace, it's like a trap. Like we just stay stuck there. And then encouragement doesn't even pop up in our minds. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you mentioned social media, and not only are we comparing ourselves, it is so easy for people just to fire verbal rockets at everyone.
Yeah.
Every day it feels like there's another, a sports star or pop star or famous person, right? And they're saying something stupid against someone else, right? And you're like, what? But it happens in whatever the social circles are. Yeah. I was watching a YouTube video this last week as I was preparing for a message, and it was a YouTube video that was maybe 60 seconds from a guy that does voiceover radio type of work, and he had a great voice, but he wrote a whole book on how to pronounce Bible names, which I thought was genius. And
yeah.
He records how to say Bible names. And so he does that for free on YouTube. I listen to it. I'm thankful. And at the very end of the video, he goes, hey, I do voiceover work. Here's my link. And I wrote this book on how to pronounce Bible names, which is a thing.
Yeah.
Right? You read the Bible and it's like, okay, John was easy, but there was this one, it was Hermogenes. I'm like, wow, who is, I don't even know if I pronounced it right, but this guy does.
Yeah.
So anyway, free video. He teaches you how to say the name, and he just lets people know, I got a website, I do voiceover work, and here's my book.
Yeah.
And this guy in the comments just ripped him. And I'm reading it, and he tried to come back very nicely to say, hey, yeah, I do these free YouTube videos, but also my livelihood is this. And this guy who claims to be a Christian just comes right back at him and just fires everything he could at him to tear him apart. How dare you sell your book? And I'm like,
That's crazy.
it was I'm just sitting there just going, yeah, but this is the world we live in.
Yeah, it's so focused on the negative.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's the thing as a leader as well. You know, we've talked about this before, especially in this season. Like, there's compassion fatigue, which I don't necessarily mean as like an emotional level standpoint, but what I mean is this: as leaders, you face so many heavy things, and there's a threshold, there's a capacity that everybody has, and it's different for everyone. But at a certain point, everybody will reach their limit, where they've heard story after story of grief and trauma and loss, and it just gets to you if you're not careful. Because, again, it's all these negative things that keep our attention. And so we have to work really hard at kind of pulling out the positives in even those negative circumstances, but then coming back and just combating the negative with the positive. Like, you have to overload positive, because the negative stuff's, I mean, it just stays with you so much longer.
Yeah. So as we lens this through a leader's set of perspective, right? Part of a leader's role is to encourage, his or her team, right? To be an encourager to those they lead. But a leader also needs encouragers in their life. Mm-hmm. And I just think so many times a leader who's pouring into their team and encouraging their team hasn't ever thought about who are they surrounding themselves with to encourage them.
Yeah.
So then there's a void within them. And then they stop encouraging their team because there's a void within them. And then their team stops encouraging their team, right? And the dominoes just go.
Yeah.
Just go. And that's why as a leader, you always have to be thinking about, but who am I surrounding myself with? And so I heard someone one time say, they're like, yeah, but you just want people to say all the things that you want them to say. You don't want people. They weren't saying that at me. They were saying that at another leader. And I was like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but as leaders, it's not just surrounding yourself with a bunch of yes people that, say nice things to you, mm-hmm. but you need people speaking life into you and encouraging. You need people that are going to come beside you and really come beside you.
Yeah.
And who are willing to say the honest things. Sure. But as a leader, we have enough people telling us what they think,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
We don't have enough people encouraging.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're a leader, you got to find that circle of people.
Yeah.
You got to gather some people that are just going to speak life.
And they're out there.
Yeah.
And there are great people that will speak truth into you and encourage you.
Yeah.
Who will say to you the hard things and encourage you.
Yeah.
Who will hold you accountable and encourage you. Those people are out there.
Yeah.
And when you find those people, man, bring them really, really close to you.
Yeah, encouragement's not just the nice fluffy words. Sometimes you got to hear truth, but it's got to come from the right person, the right way.
Yeah. With the right heart.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about basically two essentials to what it looks like to have encouragement in our lives, mainly how we can encourage other people. And we'll get to those two essentials. But first, I just want to talk about something that my family did growing up, which has shaped the way that I use my words. So I've mentioned this before, but my family has what we call the Bish family core values.
Which those should be chiseled in stone and put somewhere.
Yeah, we just need to find the stone.
Yeah.
But so what we did was we just stuck them on our refrigerator. My mom and my dad, they came up with 7 of them, and they were just on the fridge. Every time you grabbed a snack out of the fridge, you're just like looking at these values. Sometimes you read them, sometimes they're just there, sometimes they get lost because we see them so much. But the one that really stands with me when it comes to encouragement is this one that my mom always used to say. It was build up, don't tear down. And she would say this all the time because, like all siblings, we would get in arguments and discussions, and she'd just kind of like peek her head around the corner, and she'd say, hey, build up, don't tear down. And we'd be like, Okay.
Would she ever just say number 4?
Not for that one. No. But there are a couple that you just say the number and you're just like, okay, I got, I know that one. So, which is funny, but but it's this whole thing of like, we have to build each other up, especially in the family context. I mean, we know this, like if you're fighting and quarreling as a family all the time, it's just divisive. It's not going to help anybody. And then you go, okay, not just families, but organizations, businesses, churches. If you have people that are tearing each other down nonstop, nothing's going to get done. Everybody's going to be discouraged.
Yeah, you had shared with me, and you'll know the number, how many positive things you need to say to counteract one negative?
Yeah, so I was looking at John Gottman's research, which his is in marriage, you have to have 5 positive experiences to counteract one negative. And then there was a teacher that used his research in her classroom. And she said, anytime a student said something negative about herself or himself, she would stop right there and say, now say 7 good things, or 7 things you like about yourself, or 7 things you're really great at. So the ratio could be 5 to 1, 7 to 1. What I mean,
either way, right? It's the number of positive to counteract one negative.
Yeah.
And I think when we think about that and just the world we live in is all filled with negative. Mm-hmm. And whether, again, social media or you're watching the news or just people that you kind of know, really know, right? Doesn't matter the level of relationship. The negative is everywhere.
Yep. Yeah, and it just sticks with you. Like, you talk about social media, you post something, you really hope that people are going to say nice things. Like, at least I do. You post a picture, you post something, you put your heart out there, you write something. But the reality is that there's going to be that one person that always comes back with the negative.
Well, one of the things that took so long for me to get moving forward, the Advancing Leader podcast, is that. It was like, yeah, Chris, like, there's a lot of stuff you want to talk about, and you love the church, and you love leadership, and it's the hope of the world, and when people are passionate about leading within the church, it's great, and blah, all this stuff. And then my mind just went to, yeah, but you're going to open yourself up. And that's why, like, when I read that one person who's just pronouncing a Bible character name on YouTube, and he's just getting, and we haven't had negative yet. That's not inviting anyone to give us negative feedback. But I mean, right? He's getting waylaid. Just pronouncing. It was a 60-second YouTube, but it is real no matter your age. And I think that's important. We think about negative things when you're in 5th grade on the playground, but as adults, the impact is still the impact.
Yeah, it still matters. Yeah. And with building up, I think so often we focus on ourselves and we want to build ourselves up just naturally. I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we're focused on ourselves more than other people.
Yeah.
There's very few personalities where I feel like the majority of the time they're thinking of other people. But I think building up has become not just building up, but it's been, you have to knock somebody else down to build yourself up.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a terrible way to go about it. Because again, if that's what your family looks like, if that's what your business looks like, if that's what any organization or gathering of people that you're with, like, it's just going to be a negative undertone on the whole entire thing because nobody is focused on anyone else. It's all about advancing yourself instead of advancing the mission. It just gets messy.
It does.
So, we're going to talk about these 2 essentials today, and one of those is just speaking life, right? Like, speaking life is words of encouragement. It's offering feedback. It's doing it in more ways than one. It's not just words. There's many ways to do this. And so we kind of talked about this a little bit, the importance of our words, the weight of our words, the fact that there's negative all around us. So why don't we just go into something, not just speaking life. We know it's important. How do we do it? What are some practical ways that we can do that as leaders, as individuals, just as people in our lives with people, we're in relationship with, family members, team members, whatever that might look like?
Yeah, I think we've become very lazy when it comes to words of encouragement. So we say things like great job or you're the best or you're awesome, right?
Yeah.
There's these just phrases. And I think we say it, and on the surface, we pat ourselves on the back. We're like, I encourage that person.
Yeah.
But we know, just an inch below the surface, we know that's not encouragement. What does great job really mean? And what's you're the best really mean? And I think the intentionality of speaking life really is about being very specific with the words you choose to encourage.
Yeah.
And that takes time. That takes effort. That takes sitting down. And we're not talking hours.
Yeah.
but carving out 5 minutes to say, I want to encourage this person, and I'm actually going to take a pen and a notebook, right? And I'm actually going to think through my encouragement to that person and be as specific that I can, so they know when I say, hey, you did great. And what I mean by great is, or I really appreciate you. And why do I appreciate you? And be specific. And I just think that's one skill set we all need to work on.
Yeah.
Because if not, we're just going to let the busyness and craziness of our lives overtake. And then we say things like, you're the best. And we move on. We're like, well, I encouraged you. And the person doesn't feel encouraged.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing I love about what you do is you write personal notes to people, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's something that you intentionally carve out time for.
Yeah. I intentionally, and part of the power of a written note is we live in a day and age where you don't get written notes. Mm-mm. So easy to send a text message. It's so easy to send an email. It's so easy to send a Facebook inbox.
Yeah.
And so we don't get written notes anymore. And so it really pushes the encouragement to the surface. That's why we, part one of this Encourage series, we handed out actually postcards that said "You Matter" on the front. They looked nice, and on the back, just a little space. It's not pages, right? It's just where people could handwrite a note of encouragement. And what's encouraging with that is not only have people been doing that, people have also been going, I'm going to do that and snap a picture. I got one through Facebook Messenger that the person was on our online campus, downloaded the PDF, actually wrote a note on it.
Wow.
And attached it to Facebook Messenger.
That's awesome.
And just because I kind of know the internal process because we came up with it, I'm like, just this person going through all those steps to send that to me meant the world. And then the words were really, really encouraging.
Yeah, I think that's an important, not just the words, right? But like the intentionality and the effort behind getting to that point.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And you know, yes, writing something, I think, really shoves the intentionality factor through the roof. But that's not the only way, right? A very specific text message, means everything. A very specific email means everything. Yeah. You handwriting it and dropping it off. Maybe you see their car in the shopping, the grocery store lot, and you put it in their windshield or underneath their windshield. Right? There's so many different ways you can encourage. But I do think when people stop and write something, and I have atrocious handwriting. Atrocious. Okay. When I handwrite a note, I have to take time because I'm like, no one's going to be able to read this at all. But I do think it shoves it to the top.
Yeah, and I think there's so many ways that we can encourage. I mean, if you just stop and think about it, there's so many ways that you can write something or say something. But I think it's important to notice that people receive encouragement differently. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Like what means something to someone, might not mean as much to another person just based off how they're wired or based off how they receive encouragement.
Yeah, when you start thinking about how, again, all encouragement is encouragement, right? You just encourage.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it, encourage.
Yeah.
But if you want to take it to the next step, now, especially as you lead your team, as you get to know people, you start really learning, what's that kind of top tier, how they want to be encouraged. And all you have to do is look at how they encourage.
Yeah.
And as soon as you see how they encourage, you know that.
That's good.
And so my wife, she loves to send flowers to people, and she loves to send cookies to people, and she loves to send, well, guess how she likes to be encouraged?
Yeah.
That's it, right? Now, she would receive a handwritten note, like she would receive all that encouragement. That means a lot.
Yeah.
But that top little, maybe it's a 1% encouragement is when she receives stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then she's like, right, because that's how she wants to encourage people.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. For me, I do things for people to show my love because I know that's when I feel really great. So I might do the dishes for my wife, but that's not her love language. So she's like, great, you did the dishes. And I'm like, I did it because I love you. And she's like, okay.
Nothing.
Yeah, it's so funny because, People just are out there loving other people how they love instead of being kind of like students of other people and realizing, okay, there's something else that they need that might not be the same as what I need.
Yeah. So back to your dishes example, my wife loves a spotless kitchen. And, life is busy. Our schedule is busy. We're going in and out. And last night she was out, had some things to do. I was home. I looked around and I'm like, the number one thing I could do right now is to clean the kitchen.
Yeah.
Did I want to? No. Do I like a clean kitchen? Sure, but define clean.
Yeah.
Right? There's levels. But I did. Brought Claire in, my youngest, and I said, hey, Claire, why don't you help me? And this is what I said to her. I said, why don't you help me? Because this means so much to Mom. And I didn't get a complaint from a 15-year-old.
Wow.
She said, yes. And we cleaned the whole kitchen, wiped down the countertops. It was clean.
Yeah.
And that meant so much to her when she came home.
Yeah.
And for me as a dad, helping my 15-year-old, learn what it's like to be a leader. I said, hey, this is what we do for people.
Yeah.
Right? And you do it in the family. But if you do it in the family, you're going to do it for other people. She realized how much it means, and she knows this, but I'm having to remind her, but how much it means to her mom for us to have that kitchen clean.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think if you're looking at ways to encourage other people, if you're looking at ways that you can love other people better, you got to check out Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages.
Yes.
If you haven't read it, if you haven't looked at it, you have to check that out. Figure out first how you receive love, how you receive encouragement. I think that's going to help all the people in your life, but also to figure out who are those people in your life that you want to encourage, and knowing that you can maximize the best encouragement just based off of who they are. And we'll have that in the show notes for you guys. We'll get a link to his book and maybe even the test as well, so you can figure out what your love language is. But I think in terms of speaking life and encouragement, the more specific you get with the words that you speak and how you speak those words, it's just going to make all the difference in your life when it comes to encouragement.
It will. And it doesn't take a lot of time.
Yeah.
There's another resource that you brought up as you were talking through this, and it's a great book. It's called The 1 Minute Manager, and part of it is a 1 minute praise. And what I love about it is it's 1 minute.
Yeah.
Who does not have 60 seconds
Exactly.
to speak life into someone and be specific? 60 seconds. That's why I loved our postcard idea. There's only enough space for 60 seconds worth of words, right? That's all it is. And so many times we're like, well, I don't have time. It's like, who does not have time? 60 seconds a day to sit down and say, how am I going to encourage one person?
Yeah.
If we all did that, no matter how many people you lead, no matter how many people are on your team, no matter how many people are connected to you, who does not have 60 seconds a day to speak life into someone?
Yeah, and I think that comes back to what you said earlier, in the conversation, is everybody knows they need encouragement, but no one's doing it. And so they're waiting for other people to encourage them before they start encouraging people. But really what we should be doing is, as individuals, taking action to encourage now and trusting that other people are going to come into our lives to encourage us. But we got to start. It's like in my marriage, if I'm always focused on my needs and my wants and my desires, and Cassie's always focused on her wants, her needs, her desires, both of us are just going to enter this self-preservation mode that's going to be dangerous.
Yeah.
But whenever I'm like, okay, I trust my wife loves me, and she's gonna build me up, she's gonna encourage me, and I'm just gonna do the same for her. Then we're meeting each other's needs, and nobody is focused inward. Nobody is, again, dangerously in a self-preservation mode. I just think it's one of those things we have to start doing it ourselves before we wait for other people to do it to us.
Yeah.
Encouragement just has to start with us.
Which gets to an action, and that's, I think, the challenge for everyone is one person today, 60 seconds, encourage. Someday you just have to start.
Yeah.
Today's a great day.
Yeah, it's a Thursday, not a Monday.
You're right.
Might throw you off.
I don't know. There's rules on when you can start things.
Yeah.
No,
yeah, it's a great thing.
One person, 60 seconds, be specific and encourage.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about speak life. There's this second essential, and this is something you're talking about. So why don't you just tell us what that second essential thing is when it comes to encouragement, and we'll get into that.
Yeah. The second one is, the second essential is to stand beside. And there's just power in presence. And sometimes, presence includes words. Sometimes it doesn't. But there's just something about being with the person or with the people.
Yeah.
And especially coming out of the year that we've all been with a lot of isolation, I think we've all really felt, every time someone comes back to one of our physical campuses for the very first time, they talk about, I've missed being in person. We got a great online church. Awesome. I think our team does a fabulous, I could almost say that word, job with that entire online church service.
Yeah.
But it's not presence. It's not presence. And there's just power in presence. And there's something about choosing to be with a person. The Apostle Paul was writing to Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 1. And I love this little section that is so easily overlooked. And he was telling Timothy about a guy, and this is the name. Back to the book, the guy that does this for free. This is the name I was looking up, and his name is Onesiphorus. Nailed it.
You crushed that.
Crushed it. And there we go, Onesiphorus. And so also Paul, just in a few short verses, talks about Onesiphorus, that Onesiphorus, who was from Ephesus, was in Rome. Paul was in Rome in jail. And this is 2,000 years ago. Google Maps wasn't around and iPhones, right? How do you find people? And I started thinking about this, right? How would you find someone? Because how could he not find Paul? I'm like, Chris, they didn't have maps, right? They couldn't ping him. They couldn't text and say, hey, where are you?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it now. I mean, it's easy to find people. And so Onesiphorus goes to Rome. And Paul writing, he goes, and he searched hard. And I love the descriptor that Paul used. He searched hard until he found me.
Wow.
Presence. I mean, how much encouragement. I mean, Paul had just told Timothy, all of these people, Christians, Christ, deserted Paul, walked away from Paul, left Paul. And he's in jail. You think about the discouragement Paul must have been feeling. And then all of a sudden, one day, Onesiphorus, nailed it, right? Shows up at his door. Power in presence. And I just think that's something, again, in the chaoticness of life, our overcommitted schedules, we miss this, that there's something about being together. Yeah. It's why our entire staff on Tuesday, we went out to lunch together and we played golf. And those that could play golf, I think there's 3.5 of us that could play golf. I'm the half, and everyone else.
Great time.
It was amazing. Laughing, just being together, driving golf carts, enjoying the day. Right? There's just something about being together. We took all of the campus leaders together and just spent 48 hours, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe a few extra, just to be together. And so I think the power and presence comes to encouragement. Yes, it's about speaking life, but it's also choosing to be with people.
Yeah.
The people you're leading, or, again, with your family, right? Just your presence. It's not, that argument about quality or quantity. And it's like, yeah, it's both. Right? Just because you have a lot of quantity time and it's not quality, that doesn't help, a family grow together, and the vice versa.
Yeah.
It's like, I haven't seen you all year, but I'm going to give you really quality time for one day. What?
Yeah.
It's both.
You have to do both.
You have to do both. And I think that gets into standing beside. And so I think there's 3 specific actions that we need to at least pay attention to standing beside. And the first one is to show up. I mean, how many times let me personalize it. How many times have I said, and I know you have too, I'm reading your mind right now.
Okay.
If you need anything, just let me know.
Yeah.
Right? That's our cop out.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, just show up. Just show up.
Just do it.
Just do it. Paul didn't ask Onesiphorus to show up, and Onesiphorus didn't sit down, write a whole letter and say, hey, Paul, I know you're in jail and you're by yourself and you're really discouraged because all these church people just left you. If you need anything, I'll show up. No, he got on a boat or a horse or a camel. I don't know what he rode.
Yeah.
And he went to Rome and searched hard and showed up. And I just think that's something that we all need to get so much better at. It's just show up.
Do you think we overcomplicate it?
Yes. I do.
Yeah. same here. That's why I asked, because it's so easy to say those words and those words become hollow because there's no action followed by it. But I think we overcomplicate it because like, well, what if they don't want this type of encouragement? Or what if I show up with flowers or a pizza and they don't like pizza? Like, I think we just say their no for them because it's easier than taking the step of action to actually stand with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's what we do. We talk ourselves out of it, whatever the reason, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm sure some psychologist somewhere could explain it to us, but we talk ourselves out of showing up.
Yeah.
So I remember when we lost our son and we're just in the midst of deep grief, and all of a sudden food started showing up at our house and more food and more. And I'm not talking like someone, bought a sack of chicken McNuggets that had been sitting in their car and there's the barbecue place in Vegas called Lucille's, and I'm talking like bins of ribs and brisket.
Wow.
We had food, good food, and people just showed up. And I just remember being in complete fog and all of a sudden hearing the doorbell ring, opening the door, and there was someone else. And they're like, hey, we know you have a lot of family, a lot of friends, and we're sorry, we love you, and here's some food.
Wow.
It was like to the point where we had to start giving it away because we had no more room.
Yeah.
But people showed up.
We got to stop making excuses.
Yeah, that's it.
What's number 2?
Number 2 is serve. And this, all of these get connected together, but to really serve. Right after Paul writes about Onesiphorus.
There it is.
I almost got it wrong.
You got it, though.
I paused.
You saved it.
Yeah, I saved it. There we go. But he talked about how he helped him in Ephesus. And I love this word helped because it literally is translated as served. He just came right beside him and said, here's some needs. I'm just going to help you. And I think we do the same thing. We talk ourselves out of it. And sometimes it's just a simple thing. Food's one.
Yeah.
Or someone's going through a difficult time and you just, you text and say, I'm going to watch your kids tonight. You and your husband go out.
Yeah.
That's serving. Or, hey, I know you're going through a difficult time. I'm showing up, not asking. I'm showing up. I'm going to mow your grass.
Yeah.
You walk next door and mow their grass. There's so many just very simple ways to serve without it being some big complex, and you got to coordinate schedules, and you got to, get out on a spreadsheet, and and that's what we start doing in our minds.
Yep.
And so finding ways to put the towel over your arms, like I'm just going to serve you, whether you want it or not, whether you like it, because sometimes people don't want to be served, but they need to be served.
I think that ties in perfectly to this series, E-Courage, because it's all about having the courage to encourage. And in every single moment, you have to have the courage to follow through, to say yes to what you're thinking about or planning on doing. Because it can be scary to encourage people. You don't know how they're going to respond. They might be not ready to receive any help, even if they need it. And I think it's so important for us to push through those feelings and just actually go and do something. Yeah,
because so many times we lens through, well, what if, and you hit on it, what if they don't like pizza or they're gluten-free?
Yeah.
How's that?
I don't know anybody who's gluten-free.
But you show up with cauliflower crust pizza.
Yeah, which is actually really good.
Right. So we start thinking through all the reasons why they wouldn't like it, they wouldn't want you to, right? We start making up all these excuses, and we just don't do it. When in all reality, just do it, and at the least, they know you love them and you're there for them.
Yeah, you're trying.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right, and there's nothing worse than someone being in a season of discouragement and then they're all alone.
Yeah. Like Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why Onesiphorus nailed it. Right? He just searched hard and he found him.
Yeah.
And he was there with him. And all this goes to the third one. Like these were all S words.
Yeah.
Yep. Show up, serve, and the third one is silence. Sometimes the greatest encouragement, which might feel like it goes against speaking life, right? Like
that's true.
Right. First essential, speak life. Second one, stand beside, and now it's silence. But sometimes speaking life is not saying anything.
Yeah, totally.
Right. We as human beings, if we actually are standing beside someone who's going through a difficult time, sometimes aren't sure what to say. So we say stupid things.
Been there.
Right? We all have. Mm-hmm. We've all said stupid things and have had people say stupid things to us.
Yeah.
Like there's this one Sunday, and this is just several weeks after, not weeks, probably 2 months after we lost our son, standing in the hallway because Kim and I were working at a church, and this good-hearted person walks up, and the first thing out of their mouth was, "So sorry for your loss." And then they said, "But he's in a better place." And I almost took a trash can over their head, right? Like,
So you just leave it there. Don't say but anything.
Just sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
I would just take a hug. And I just think silence sometimes is the loudest thing you could say to someone when you're beside them.
Yeah.
Sometimes a hug without words.
Yeah.
Sometimes just looking them in the eyes and putting your arm around them and just not saying a thing is speaking life as you stand beside.
Yeah.
And I just think we got to get better in the uncomfortability of silence.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast this week called Leaders in Living Rooms, and they had this guy in there, and I think who I'm talking about, the guy in Chicago. You said Community Church?
Yeah, community Christian.
Community Christian, yeah. So they had this guy in there, and they do this thing where they're just going out, they're trying to love on their community. So they use this acronym called BLESS, and each letter stands for something. The first one is be prayerful. The second one is listen. And he just talks about that, how we just need to listen without saying anything, without having a rebuttal, without listening to respond, but just listening. And I think the interesting thing is he said something like, when you ask people the group that they're most willing to talk to when it comes to like a spiritual matter or a matter of faith, it's always people that listen without judgment. And I think if we can practice listening without judgment, along with the silence piece, silence is presence, but also if we just listen to somebody talk and make them feel heard and make them feel understood, it makes all the difference. That's why sometimes when you talk with someone, or maybe you're in a disagreement with someone, they say the same thing over and over and over again because they don't feel like they're being heard. And so silence gives us the opportunity to listen, and listen hopefully without judgment, so that we can just be with that person.
Yeah, and I need to. I've read a little bit about what they've written about this blessed word. Mm-hmm. I need to go back and spend some more time, and we will put it in the show notes as well. But you think about listening without judgment. So many times when we're standing beside someone who's going through a difficult time, we feel this obligation to try to fix whatever they're going through.
Yeah.
Solve what they're going through, tell them to, pull up their big boy pants and, you can do it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that needs to be said. Most of the time, early on, you just need to listen.
Yeah.
They don't need help yet.
Yeah.
They don't need all of that rah-rah advice. They just need you to be with them, to sit in the pain, to sit in the loss, to sit in the mess, to sit in all of it. And then over time, help walk with them. And I have some good friends right now that I'm walking with. And I've said to both of them, yeah, it's messy. Allow it to be. You don't have to rush to try to heal what's been broken. You want to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And I just think that listening without judgment is so many times we rush to try to fix, to heal. And sometimes it's like, just be in it.
Yeah.
Just be in the mess. And make sure you're helping that person take steps forward, right? You don't want to get stuck in it.
Yeah.
And that happens as well.
Yep.
So you want to put enough pressure to keep it moving forward without just trying to solve it. Because sometimes it's not solvable in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for task-oriented people too, you just got to realize that sometimes discouragement's not something to check off your to-do list.
Yeah.
Like discouragement is not something to get over personally. You can't do that. And then for other people, like we have to have time to process and work through our stuff.
My dad would always say when I was frustrated in leadership or failed in leadership or whatever the scenario was, he always gave me a 24-hour clock. He goes, you got 24 hours to have your pity party. 24 hours, not like the massive things in life, but the small things as a leader. He always would say, you have 24 hours, get a good night's sleep, and the next day, fix it, conquer it, overcome it, right? Like 24 hours, you got it. Have your pity party. And I love that, again, on the smaller things. And bigger things in life, it takes a little bit more
time. But
it's the same principle. And so we need to, when someone's dealing with it, sometimes we just need to look at them and say, you got 24 hours. And I will join you in your pity party, right?
Yeah.
I'll join you. But when the clock's up, we got to move out of it. And that's, again, that's speaking life and standing beside.
Yeah. Well, this is a great conversation. I'm super thankful for your thoughts, Chris. And leaders, again, the challenge this week, one person, encourage one person. Take 60 seconds, just encourage one person. And know that we have to do this together. one person can make a difference, but if we're all doing it, man, I can't imagine the impact it can have on people's lives as we speak life and stand beside.
I tell you, it's how I started it. Great job.
Great
Bevan.
job, too.
See, we learned something from each other.
We're good at this.
No, seriously, Bevan, it's been awesome because here's one of the things as I come out of my sarcastic leadership, which I read an article about how that's poor leadership being sarcastic. But we don't have to include any of this.
Not in the show notes.
No, we can edit it. But one of the things I love is that you are a learner and you bring so much insight into our podcast from stuff that you are just practically learning in daily life. And I just think leaders that have a high, up to the right trajectory are always learning, always consuming, always growing, always are introspective, and always leaning into other leaders. And you rock at that. So with all that said, this has been your Advancing Leader podcast. We'll see you next time.